Hello and welcome to the Red 78, a Munster podcast for Munster fans. Coming up on this week's show, Fiona, Alan and I catch up after a couple of weeks apart. Plans about serious FOMO in the meantime. Munster win at Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Surely it's time for a big European game or URC game down in the park. We'll preview Friday's clash with Scarlets, and we will look at Munster's players involved in the Six Nations as well. It's all to come this week's episode of the Red 78 podcast. I'm Ruairi O'Hagan from Off the Ball. I'm joined by Munster legends Alan Quinlan and Fiona Hayes. Lads, it's been a while. Have you missed me? Tell the truth.
I have, and I think Rory, myself and you are looking as pale as ever, but Quinny looks like he has an all tan going on there. I'd say he had a few trips in the last couple of weeks. Would you, Rory?
Yeah, tough life he has, right, isn't it? Down in Marseille, sunning himself up.
There was a small bit of sun in Marseille, right? Yeah, it was a great trip. It was great results. It's been a few weeks. It's kind of strange, isn't it, this break? It's good for the players, I think, and it's obviously good for the coaches and for the URC. The whole reason of doing this is not to have major distraction during the Six Nations tournament, but chance for Munster kind of recharge the batteries and all the other teams as well. But particularly when we're talking about Munster, all the injuries they've had, and a couple of players back this week, which will hopefully help them as well. So they've got to get back on track, don't they? You know, we had the Crusaders game 2 weeks ago and a week and a half ago, and that was a really positive kind of result. Few people saying Munster the world champions now, club world champions.
We'll lean into that, yeah.
But I think the URC table, which I know you're going to get into as well, Rory, is that's the most important thing now. They're sitting 12th. Now, there is only 6 points off fourth place, but they need to get on a run now, and we'll talk about that.
We certainly will. Quinny never said he missed me, Fiona.
I know, it's terrible. Not showing the love. He played a cool.
I did. Of course I did. Of course I did.
Actually, in my Facebook memories this week, a photograph popped up of me meeting Quinny 8 years ago with my daughter.
My goodness.
Yeah, himself and John Hayes were inside in Red FM with the Six Nations trophy, so I brought my daughter in to meet a legend, so it was really nice to meet John Hayes.
Who John Hayes was it?
None of us have aged any bit.
No, we've gotten better with age, Quinny, if anything, to be perfectly honest. Before we talk about that Crusaders game, let's go through some of the comments, Fiona, and see what people have been saying in our absence in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's kind of looking at the Scarlets side. A lot of people were focusing on Rosker had RG and Tom both available for selection. That could be a major subject for Scarlets and their line-out preparation this week. Dahi had hopefully some feel-good factor will boost the Munster camp with those returning Irish players, and we can also build on the Crusaders' victory positivity like we had after the South Africa victory last season, and he's looking forward to the podcast. Niamh said, would love to see a good performance for the full 80 minutes. We need to get over this hump. And I suppose Trevor, as we were saying, now that we're world champs, you're dead right, Trevor. We are, of course. There's no doubt we're heading for another massive bout of season-ending injuries. I just want us to come through the game with no season-ending injuries, please. If that's not too much to ask for Santa, we've all been good.
Well, let's hope we don't pick up any injuries on Friday night anyway. But let's start, lads. We are the world champions. We might as well celebrate that fact. Munster beating the Crusaders in front of a crowd of over 40,000 down at SuperValu Pairc Uí Chaoimh was a great occasion. Maybe Fiona Hayes not the greatest game of rugby we've ever seen.
No, not. But look, there was a lot of changes to the starting squad. A lot of guys that have been playing AIL got a chance to get a run out in front of 40,000 people down in Cork. And I thought the kick at the end, there was a great kind of anticipation of whether he'd kick it over, whether we'd become world champs or not. And I suppose there was a couple of good tries as well, though, Rory, in the mix there. I thought, obviously, the Shane Daly not grounding try.
So
that would have
close.
been absolutely, beautiful offload by Ethan Coughlin in the run up to that as well. So there was some lovely play in the first half in particular. I thought it probably a bit of a slump in the second half, but they come out on top. And actually the line-out was functioning very well also against that Crusaders team. So there was a couple of positives to take. But I think it's just overall the occasion and the lads getting the run out. And of course the win would have been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it was a good win, to be fair. 21-19 was how it finished down there. Quinny, surely at this stage, it's like we've had two sold-out games now at Páirc Uí Chaoimh, SuperValu Pairc as it's now known. That's incredible, first off, but it's surely time now that there's like a competitive game has to be played there. I mean, like I asked Graham Rowntree, I said, is the next step a competitive game? He said, that was a competitive game. And I said, Graham, you know what I mean, a European game or a URC game. But surely it's time now after these two games, Quinny.
Yeah, I would think so. I think I've said this before to you. I'm a neutral being from Tipperary, and I gave all my career driving up and down to Cork and driving to Limerick and you know, I obviously eventually living in Limerick and stuff. So I never really had a problem with either place being the kind of center of excellence. Obviously that's happened now and it's in the university, but there's always been a little bit of an undertone between Limerick, Cork, and who's getting what matches and stuff like that. Thomond Park is historic, iconic event, stadium, so much history to the place. Virgin Media Park, as it's known now, is, you know, that was so many fond memories of playing for Munster over the years there as well. So yeah, taking any sort of bias, if you're from Limerick or Cork, obviously people are going to kind of argue the toss a bit and say, well, the matches should be in Limerick and that's the home of rugby, but you've got to service and support the Cork rugby players and rugby pundits and fans as well, you know. And I think, you know, there's some great clubs in Cork. Rugby is a very passionate sport there as well. So we've seen from the South Africa game, I suppose the novelty factor of having these two games and the Crusaders game, they worked brilliantly. I think, to answer your question, yes, I'd love to see a competitive fixture there because, you know, when you get into the knockout stages, semi-finals, I think you have to have a capacity. I'm not sure the exact capacity, but it has to be over 25,000 anyway. So Cork would kind of fit the bill there, and I think it's the obvious choice. I think it's going to happen. If Munster had been, you know, who knows what's happened? Well, you know, they play Northampton now in around 16, so they're away. They win that, they're more likely to be away to the Bulls in South Africa, so they don't have that option of kind of using it as a SuperValu Pairc as a venue this year. But I would love to see a knockout game there, or even one of the pool games there. Problem you have here, and it comes down to brass tacks, you know, it would make more money from Munster Rugby, but there's a stadium that has to be paid for still and debt service in Thomond Park. So you kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. But ultimately you make more money with more capacity and more people on seats. And I think it's been brilliant. And I think I'd have no doubt if it was a pool game or a URC game there. A lot of talk about the Munster Leinster one at Christmas. Will we see one of those? I hope we do, because I think the people of Cork would deserve that. And it would be lovely because, you know, obviously all the games and the big games in Thomond Park, they're travelling up and down a lot. It'd be nice to have a big competitive game, like the question you asked, a competitive league game or a knockout pool ERC or a knockout ERC game would be brilliant.
Yeah, well, being Cork based, I'm biased. I want to see as many Munster games here as possible. Let's hope we get some big games down in SuperValu Pairc. Not a whole lot else to report from that game, really, is there, Fiona? I mean, like, I'm just looking at my notes. The biggest note I have is Lee Halfpenny doing a hack on Pairc is a very, very strange sentence to read.
Yeah, that was a bit mad looking at that.
Yeah.
And then obviously followed up very shortly afterwards by an injury to his pec muscle. So obviously he hadn't practiced these moves enough. I'm only joking. But look, as I said, it was a good occasion. There was some nice rugby played at times. Probably be disappointed how they defended that first kind of Crusaders try and the blind wing. But other than that, I thought the lads put in a real good shift. And, you know, even Gavin Coombs in second row, I thought he was super around the pitch. Big ball carrying. A lot of the time we see him more involved in the game when he's playing at 8 and trying to establish himself, I suppose, in the second row and carry ball. I haven't seen it enough. And definitely in this game, I thought he got on a lot of scrappy ball, some big carries. And obviously that close to the line, he's the first person you want carrying the ball over it. So I thought he had a bit of a huge game. And Joey Carberry to get the game in as well was brilliant. And I thought himself and Ethan Coughlin actually worked exceptionally well together. It's good for Ethan to be on a game like that and get that kind of game day sense of how Joey plays and in and around that. So I thought the two of them actually built up a nice partnership as the game went on.
Yeah, certainly did. All right, we'll preview the Scarlets game in a bit. That's coming up this coming Friday, 7:35 kickoff. But let's look at how the Munster players, first off, have been performing at the Six Nations. And I suppose when you're going into it, all the question marks are on Jack Crowley and the weight of expectations on his shoulders. But he's answered those questions just expertly.
Yeah, he has. I think he's it's been a roaring success. I think the scrutiny in it that goes with that position for in normal circumstances, you know, in any game of rugby, your 10 there's a lot of scrutiny on your 10 because there's so much decision making going on there, and but I think it's heightened by the fact that of the predecessor Johnny Sexton, who was an exceptional player for such a long time, world class, with everything he did. So there's always going to be a bit more scrutiny. I think Jack has handled the pressure really well. I think he's performed outstandingly well. Is there a couple of mistakes in there? Of course. We end up talking about a few mistakes, I think, and I get drawn into it myself, but it's natural. And I don't think Jack Crowley would be too bothered by that because I think he's getting enough credit, very balanced credit from everybody, to be fair. There's nobody saying this is not working here. I think the big plus side here is his confidence, his athletic ability, his presence is big, and I love that. They're hard things to coach and get right. A couple of tweaks with some of the decision making when there's defenders in front of him. He's probably kicked a few balls. I think the grubber against France and the crossfield kick were inaccuracies. Probably the grubber was not the right call. The crossfield kick was just a little bit inaccurate. He had one the other day where he's blocked down. He just hesitated a little bit. All that stuff will get better because I think he's very diligent in looking back at his own games and trying to get better. And the more, if we were getting blemish-free performances from Jack, I think obviously it'd be great in one sense, but there's a little bit to work on. And the conversions and the penalty he missed in Marseille would frustrate him when he starts kicking conversions from the touchline. First one in particular, I love the kind of poker face and that determination that he showed. So he's a great fighting spirit, and I think it's all good. I think it's all really positive. And I know we want him to do, probably Munster will want him to do a bit more better because of where he's from and the journey he's come on, and we're very excited about him. But in general, everybody is, from all the provinces, and Irish rugby fans are very, very pleased with the quality of player that's stepped into Johnny Sexton's boots. And I was pleased for Harry Byrne as well, getting off the bench and getting confidence. He's a big athletic player as well. Kieran Frawley, I thought, would have started that game given he was on the bench the week before, but there's obviously a thought process to that from Ireland. And but Jack looks good. Obviously he's got to keep working on that and keep working on his game. But when you think that you go to Marseille in your first Six Nations to start and perform the way he did, he's physically stuck in the middle of everything. He's cleaning out rucks and a lot of the stuff that maybe people don't see. So the brass tacks and the basics and all that stuff are top class. And I think he's only going to get better and better. And he's really exciting that it's happening for him now.
Nice.
And he's, as well as that, like even the fact he takes it to the line, he's getting a few late hits in there as well, but it just shows how much, how confident he is in himself. Especially in the first half against Italy, I thought he was super in his decision making, taking it into line, knows he's going to get a hit, but has the ability to pop that pass or pull him behind. He's just got great vision, I think.
Matt Williams is fairly critical of his kicking accuracy, Quinny, after the Italy game, saying that, look, if it's not going to be at 85%, you're not going to win big games. But look, when you're performing that well, I suppose, over the 80 minutes, you can be forgiven a few misplaced kicks.
Yeah, he's critiquing a little bit there, but I think that's the point I'm making here. I think, with any player in any sport, unless you're kind of really mature, and it's very rare you get a performance in sport where there's no mistake or error or something you should have done differently. like I said, there's a lot of scrutiny there. I know Matt is very, very impressed with Jack Crowley, so I think it can be misconstrued and taken that, oh, the Virgin Media pundits are kind of looking for what he's not doing well. I think it's like as if you say 9 good things about a person and say one bad thing, everybody remembers the bad thing.
Yeah.
So I think Jack understands that, and I hope he understands that. And I wouldn't like people to focus on not in Matt in particular, but in general, I think there is a couple of mistakes there. You talk to the Munster coaches, or if you talk to Graham Roundtree or whatever, after that Northampton game, in the pool game, of course there was things. Jack came out himself, and there's things he should have done better. So that's work in progress. There's a lot of positive stuff here, and that's the big plus. We're not looking at fundamental kind of issues here and challenges. Some decision making, which is easily worked on. And the best way you can do that when there's a lot of defenders in your face is keep it simple. Give it to Bundy Aki, give it to Robbie Henshaw, give it to Gary Ringrose, or just put the ball early. And that's probably a communication thing as well. And international rugby is, there's a bit more pace and there's less time to make those decisions. That's not to say if you go back and play with Munster that you do it all right, because we saw a kick in Toulon that if he had his time back, he wouldn't do it again, where Toulon gathered the ball and they went to length of the field and scored. So yeah, I think it's important that the narrative here is everybody's very pleased with the way Jack Crowley is going, and I'm sure the Irish coaches are, and that's probably the most important thing, because that's who he's focusing in and working with now.
He's on 81% kicking as well, I think, with Munster. That's the percentage he's on with Munster. So it's
Not
like
far
from two international starts. Like, I think some of the kicks, obviously you're very disappointed with the ones that are in front of the post, you know, if he was kicking from the touchline. But I just feel like it's a tweak in his mentality. I don't even think it's changing anything about his kicking game. It's just they'll have to dig into his mentality a little bit more just to see how come those blips happened at that time, I'd imagine.
Let's look at Calvin Nash, Fiona. 2 tries, 2 games. Quite the performances from him, I suppose, and to get 2 tries in 2 games is exceptional, but that will really kind of settle him down, I suppose, going forward.
Yeah, look, and I thought, especially against Italy, I thought it looked really busy. You know, you want the style Ireland play in particular, and Munster players, you want your wingers busy. You want them coming into the line, looking for work. And I thought he seemed far more comfortable in Italy. Obviously, with France, you know, his first start, it was a huge game, and I thought he was absolutely superb. He's kicking, he's tackling. It's his defense and his decision making around that I'm really impressed with. As a winger, you know, at international standard, we've seen James Lowe in particular. He's brilliant at it. When that lap pass comes out, stopping that offload, because you want to kill it dead and make them work from that outside and get your defense back in order. So I think he's been absolutely super in targeting the ball in the right situations, in getting that low chop in when he needs to as well. So he's someone that a Limerick man. So I'm a Limerick woman, super proud to see him out there. But he's growing and growing. And I suppose at the start of the competition, there would have been chatter around maybe Larmer was coming into good form. I personally think if you're looking at who's available right now with Hansen out, I think Calvin has nailed that jersey. And as I said, he's defensively brilliant, but it's he's footwork around contact, he's kicking game. He's just been really, really good for Andy Farr.
Yeah, super impressive indeed. How good was Tadhg against France, Quinny?
Yeah, he was outstanding. I think Joe McCarthy got player of the match and just edged him. It could have easily went to Tadhg as well. And
Did you give that out, Quinny?
No, World Feed, the World Feed commentators did that one. All right, our French TV. I think the thought process of Joe McCarthy starting, I thought James Ryan would have partnered him, so it wasn't nothing to do with Tadhg's ability or the way he was playing. That potentially could have meant that he wasn't starting. So he was amazing at Tadhg, running the line out. They had a clean bill of health in the line out. They won every ball. They stole a couple from France. The same at the weekend. I think they're, 2 games they haven't lost the line out, and this was an issue previously. It was an issue at the World Cup, obviously against South Africa, and a couple against New Zealand as well. Small moments that have kind of cost a brilliant team. I think not solely the lineup, you know, but it was really important to win in France. It kind of rubber stamped and cemented their ability to go and win that game with their set piece performance, particularly in the lineup. I think Tyburn was immense. You know, it was great to see. And as Fiona said, it's great to see Calvin Nash come into the team as well. You know, there's when you think of the World Cup starting team, you've no Johnny Sexton, no Mac Hansen, and there's one other, I'm gone blank. The centres played with Ringrose was gone. Sorry, yeah, no Ringrose, Hansen, and Sexton. So they were 3 starters, and then you've Crowley. Robbie Henshaw coming back in again has reminded everyone how good a player he is. He was superb in the last 2 games. But I think for Calvin Nash to come in there and look comfortable and score 2 tries in his first 2 Six Nations starts was fantastic for him.